Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two mighty warriors. On the left-hand side, we have Captain Morgan 1170 up against Hunter, and it is a battle of the Elves. The Wood Elves do take unkindly to the High Elves, come into their lovely little desert here, and going to be trying to push them back. Now, this was for this week's challenge. We are doing challenge once a week, where I'll set a ridiculous challenge, such as to get the most damage value on a unit of Bladesingers, and that was indeed this week's challenge. So these Bladesingers will be the focal point of this entire video, and how much damage value they can get. It brings up a load of really awesome tactics. We had previously one with the Maxim Barbs, where someone brought Rev Crystals, which is a unit you don't get to see terribly often, just to heal them up and keep them fighting, and using other distractions and so forth. So very interested to see how Captain Morgan does milk the value where possible from the Bladesingers. Apart from that, his front line is going to be the cheap and relatively cheerful Eternal Guards, dotted all the way along, and a couple of Dryades on the flanks for a bit more anti-infantry. Dryades a little risky here because of Silver and Guard, but I do like the inclusion of a couple of them, as they will tear through Spearmen and the like very quickly. We do have a couple of units of Glade Riders as well, once again guarding those flanks. A really interesting choice in this matchup in particular. We have Deepwood Scouts with Swift Shiver Shards. They're going to be really fantastic at counter-skirmishing at Illyrian Reavers if they can get to them. These guys, of course, don't have the greatest range, but a huge burst of damage, as they do fire 2 shots when a normal Elvish Archer would only fire 1. Very interested to see how they perform. We also have a Waystalker who's pretty needed here, especially if you're not going to go for a full rush, because you need to be able to take down enemy Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, with a Spellsinger of Shadows coming with Enfeebling Foe and Melkoff's, not Melkoff's Mystifying Miasma, coming in with Enfeebling Foe and Orcham's Mindrazor, there we go. And for the leader, we have a Glade Lady on the Mighty Stag mount, probably the most glorious and prideful looking mount in the entire game. Beautiful model, and coming in simply with the basic stuff you'd expect. Arrows of Kurnos, Prevenath Raymer, and the Banner of the Eternal Queen. Up against them, though, it's going to be a huge high elf force, which is going to pause it, as there's a massive flank overload coming down the side by the High Elves. So we have a load of Illyrian Reavers, very cheap cavalry, particularly quick, though, good for getting into the back lines and shutting down the enemy, as well as triple Illyrian Reaver archers, good for enemy counter-skirmish. In the main force, it is very cheap, as you would expect, for going so heavily on cav and big flying monsters in the distance. So we simply have 2 humble spearmen and a couple of units of basic archers protecting it, the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, trying to drag the Wood Elf infantry into them, and then hit them from behind with that cavalry. With a Mage of Life coming with Earthblood and Regrowth, as well as a Noble on foot with his mighty halberd, probably getting quite overheated though in his big gown, simply coming in with martial prowess. Up in the skies, we do have a Great Eagle, as well as the mighty Teclis. So interesting, we have 2 Regrowths on the field technically here. Teclis will be riding his very expensive mount, coming in just with Enfeebling Foe, Regrowth, of course his potions, and the Bound Fiery Convocation. Very good if you can pin in the enemy. So the battle is well and truly underway. It looks like the Illyrian Reavers trying to burst that charge into the back line, although they do get a little bit distracted by going for the rear charge on the Eternal Guard. Big mistake, maybe he didn't realise the Deepwood Scouts were here yet, because these guys will butcher the rather lightly armoured Illyrian Reavers, piercing their thin armour and instantly breaking off 1 unit straight out the gate. The other one's been a bit more successful though, starting to float around the outside. The archers here are here as well. Glade Riders are going to be used to try and plug the gap and pin in these Illyrian Reavers. But all round, Reavers are relatively cheap, and it's going to buy more and more time for that Bolt Throw to do the damage it needs to do. Currently focusing down at those Bladesingers, which is really bad news for Captain Morgan. However, he has easily crumpled this very kind of eager charge on the left-hand flank by the Illyrian Reavers. Far too quick, in my opinion, to get in there. They need the support of the rest of the build. And we do have a Prevenath Raymer going down on Teclis, and he is getting absolutely sniped, although the Deepwood Scouts, of course, do not have anywhere near as much armor piercing as a mighty Waywatcher unit. However, the big fiery convocation is going to come down, freeing Teclis from his tethers that do bind him to this world. Eternal Guard, as well as Deepwood Scouts, they're getting absolutely butchered, 2 for the price of 1. And Teclis should be now able to get back in the skies and start to recover his strength. 1 unit of Reavers is still floating round the back line. Looks like another one has come back. The Glade Riders, who did a fantastic job pinning them in, are starting to resort themselves out themselves. Although Glade Riders are now being kited back by the triple archers. Not a good day now for the Wood Elves if they start losing that mobility game. Mighty Great Eagle is bloodied now, flying up in the skies alongside Teclis. And I think that was a really dodgy first engagement for the High Elves all round. They're managing now to catch a breath. They can regrowth up and come at the battle once again. In the distance, the Leon Reavers are starting to pull back out of range of the Glade Lady's accurate bow fire, and unfortunately now for the Wood Elves, they didn't lose too much in their initial engagement, although one of the units of Deepwood Scouts and Eternal Guard got pretty hammered pretty hard. But now a lot of the protection for the back line in the form of these Glade Riders is getting dealt with, and there's still triple Reaver Archers in the back, and a couple of the basic ones to really pound and hound down at the Deepwood Scouts if they're not too careful. And it looks like that's just what could happen here. The Glade Lady's popping over, perhaps with a net or two in the back pocket, but the Deepwood Scouts have been forgotten. The Wood Elf player looking to get really aggressive and shut down that bolt throwers. It looks like the Arrows of Kronos haven't managed to do the job. Leon Reavers are dying in droves to the 360 Noscops of the Deepwood Scouts, but it looks like they are unfortunately now going to start to get run down a little bit. Maybe this unit of Eternal Guard can pull back and protect. Over on the left-hand side, it looks like the Dryades are going to be pushing really aggressively, as well as the Eternal Guard all across the battle line. The Bladesingers, unfortunately, only 2 kills so far, and they're taking big burst damage from the bolt thrower, although only 58 damage value, not looking too good. Remember, guys, the whole point of this is to get as much damage value as possible on those Bladesingers, so I have to see how Captain Morgan does fare in that regard. Glade Lady is being used to try and harass the enemy skirmish cav where possible and protect the Deepwood Scouts, who are now trading really effectively up against the Reaver Archers, doing some massive burst damage. They want to be charging into combat and getting the help of these other Reavers, but far easier to say up here in the skies. Dryades have wrapped around the left-hand flank, could hammer home into the back of the Spearmen, who are now engaged up against the Bladesingers and Eternal Guard, who have charged headlong in, although bolt throwers are getting really aggressive and far into some of their own troops. So it looks like the High Elves don't care too much if they which elf they hit, as long as they hit an elf of some description. Down the back line, Teclis is floating around, eating up some Dryades. He's going to do fantastic work there, of course. He does come with that glorious fire damage. And in the back lines, the Glade Lady has managed to catch and break off some of the Reavers, although others are able to regroup and recuperate here. And it looks like he is now using his Leon Reavers in the back line to finish off those Deepwood Scouts, with the help of the Great Eagle, who unfortunately has been felled from the skies there. Deepwood Scouts desperately trying to protect one another, but good, consistent pressure from the Reavers is slowly driving them down into the dirt and sand. It looks like the Wood Elves slowly losing a little bit of momentum, which they had picked up earlier in the battle with some good engagement. Mindrazor has gone down on the Bladesingers, increasing their base weapon damage by 50%, which is pretty insane. And they have managed to surround a caster who they popped Enfeebling Foe on, and this is a fantastic way to attempt to milk some of that damage value. Heroes in general, particularly squishy ones like the Mage of Life, will make fine collections for the Bladesingers' damage. Looks like another big fiery complication is coming down, doing some really nice damage to those Dryades, and not quite breaking them. It looks like they've just about wavered and stabilised themselves, and they are now hunting down archers on the back line of the High Elves, is well and truly getting kind of capsized at this point. Major Life is still going down, although there's a pretty full health Teclis up in the skies, who might want to float over here and deal with that Glade Lady, fully shut her down. In the back line, Reaver Archers still going toe-to-toe with the Deepwood Scouts, and faring a little bit better than the Scouts, it would seem, as another arrow colonist does get flung across the battlefield by the Way Stalker. Looks like that bolt thrower is now down to one piece. We are going to see the attempted character assassination. Enfeebling Foe popped on the Glade Lady, and Teclis is here, and he is angry, trying to peck her eyes out and feast upon the bones of the Great Stag, who does literally leaps over an Illyrian Reaver in a glorious fashion, but it is getting hammered quite hard. Glade Lady is still pretty squishy, despite the fact the Great Stag mount looks absolutely brilliant. Archers have been forced off at this moment. I think the Reaver Archers and the basic Reavers needed to play a little bit more defensively and try and really get the damage value from the bolt thrower, but instead getting really aggressive, not too much to protect this back line. Bladesingers have, after dispatching or doing really decent damage, it would seem, to the Mage of Life, she has regrowthed herself up a little bit perhaps. They are now getting a surround on the Noble, who has been hit by an Enfeebling Foe. No pointy-eared High Elves here to protect you now. Bladesingers whipping around those magical blades, carving him up nicely. He is going down very quickly. Only 47 kills, but getting some big priority targets now. That is what I like to see. Down here in the back line, looks like Reaver Archers have managed to use up their ammunition, but are continuing to just tread on the Deepwood Scouts, run them down in the back line, although the Waystalker is coming over to say hello and try to destroy some of those troops. Noble is completely exhausted at the moment and running for his life, having completely shattered. Bladesingers continue to pressure where they can. Looks like they may go after the Spearmen, but it might be a bit of a waste of their time and life force. Eternal Guard are now starting to put pressure on the Archers, who have managed to recuperate and once again launch an arrow after arrow into the fray. And in the distance, the Glade Lady was forced off initially by Teclis, who has nearly hit his healing cap. The big bird, a ferocious beast indeed, although disgustingly expensive, looks to once again have eyes on the prize, aiming for that Glade Lady booty. flown up into the skies and starting to hunt her down. Alien Reavers, though, have been shattered, so have the Bolt Thrower crew who are running for their lives, and Dryads. But Teclis is swooping majestically through the air, and the Glade Lady tries to retreat to the corner of the map, but there is no safety, nowhere you can hide. You can run, but you cannot hide from Teclis in the skies. Bladesingers come back to deal, kind of finish the job, I suppose. They started on the Mage of Life, deal her the killing blow. She's getting very low now, 360 health. These Bladesingers up to 51 kills. 1,600 damage value isn't too shabby, but still nowhere near kind of the levels we expect them to get by the end of the game. Spellsinger of Shadows is trying her little heart out up against the Archers. I like to see her on a Unicorn Mount. You don't get to see it terribly often. Exploding them in fiery rage there. The life magic does explode outwards. I suppose life can giveth and taketh away. Alien Reaver Archers down here, once again, have been broken, but not before getting 60 kills, putting some good pressure on the enemy. Tunnel Guard do manage to wrap them up, however, and it's actually an incredibly close game, despite the bad initial engagements for the High Elves. He's really managed to scrap it back, take out the enemy leadership, and do a pretty fantastic job so far. And with an angry Teclis floating around the battlefield who causes terror, this could be a big problem for the endgame for the Wood Elves. Over here, Archers were chased off, but they've been allowed to rally, as well as the Mage of Life, which is huge because of the healing potential she can bring back to the fray, particularly on something like these Spearmen. Just keep them fighting, help them beat the Eternal Guard, and then rally to Teclis. Alien Reavers do clatter in to the Bladesingers, attempting to finish them off. Only 1,800 health left on these badass ladies, but 47 models, and Mind Razor does go down, and this is where they can really start picking up that damage. They slaughter the Reavers. Look how many dead horses there are on the ground. And Teclis does some glorious swooping attack animations. I'm sure they're not going to be too happy about that. So he picks up some of the sisters and flings them to the ground. Or the Bladesingers, I should say. Bladesingers, though, with their buff stats, are coming in with the glorious surround, getting some really nice AP stats on them as well. And Teclis is just lamb to the slaughter here. 2,000 health, but dropping incredibly rapidly. Looks like an Infeeding Foe is going to be popped on him as well, lowering his melee defense to a meager 16. And Bladesingers are dicing and slicing him up with deadly efficiency now. All around the battlefield, fights are still going on. Eternal Guard up against Spearmen, Archers raining fire in from afar, and the Mage of Life needs to come over here and help support where possible. Bladesingers just about clinging on. They are wavering really badly at the moment. The Teclis is surrounded and not having a good day. Can he tear at them off the field? Only time will tell. Elsewhere, it looks like the Spellsinger of Shadows is just absolutely vibing, and apart from that, yeah, not too much really going on. It does really come down to, can the Bladesingers hold the line? Because if not, big tear-outs can be seen across the battle for sure. Lovely swooping animation may help him here, because he cannot take damage whilst he does it. It also looks brilliant. I wish we saw more of these animations. There's some really fun ones, like a Slan will pick up a Help Abomination and force it off. In comes the Spellsinger, though, accompanying the Bladesingers, pushing off Teclis, and looks like he is actually routing from the field now. He's lost considerable health, down to just 600. The Bladesingers somehow holding the line, and with that, the High Elves do break entirely. Very well played to the Wood Elves. Crazy fun game. Big kind of misplays early on from the High Elf player, from Mr. Hunter, but did a fantastic job at scrapping it back. Never give up, and he nearly managed to pull out the victory. Teclis was a beautiful counter to this Wood Elf build. Very well played to Cap Morgan, though. Thank you for sending this one in. And once again, guys, this was from our weekly challenges. Every week we're now going to be having a poll every Thursday. People will vote on the poll to what they want the challenge to be. There's normally going to be 6 options based around damage value, number of kills, that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then every Thursday I will then cast the winner. And this winner was Capt Morgan. So drum roll, please. I'll do a little one on my table. I'm not sure if you can hear that. And the mighty Bladesingers gaining a chevron, getting 72 kills, 3,486 damage value. Incredibly impressive stuff, and it turns out it's a lot harder to get damage value on these ladies than you would expect. They are incredibly squishy, and your opponent often does find himself focus firing them down where possible because of the sheer amount of damage they can bring to the battlefield. 10,000 damage dealt, very solid job all round, really racking it up by targeting key expensive targets, the Mage, the Noble, and Teclis. Also getting on top of Eagle Bolt Throws, artillery pieces and other such units can be really good for these type of challenges, so very well played to them. We will go through the rest of the damage dealt and damage value in just a second, but if you guys did enjoy, feel free to give the video a big old fat thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. If you haven't already, we'll drop videos every day, stream a couple of times a week. It is glorious stuff and a big fun time. Down below in the description you can find links to my Patreon if you do wish to support the channel. There's also links down there to my Discord where you can submit replays, get involved in these weekly challenges that we host, post. A poll will be up by the time this video is kind of processing on YouTube. I'm about to do it just after this. You can hop in there, have a little vote, and see what is next. But anyway, on to the glorious stats. So the Deepwood Scouts with Swift Shiver Shards hold a dear place in my heart. They're incredibly niche but can do some really lovely damage. And here they managed to counter skirmish the huge cavalry contingent coming in from the High Elf force. 2,725 damage value. Glorious work. 12k damage dealt. 1.1k damage here, 497. So the other two not faring quite as well, but this one an absolute MVP, shutting down so much of the High Elf cavalry. Apart from that, the Glade Riders were sacrificial lambs to the slaughter, just there to throw themselves in front of the enemy and buy time for those scouts to deal the damage that was needed. Turner Guard across the board did relatively standard stuff. They're not here to kill too much. They hold back the enemy and slowly push in, enveloped the smaller High Elf force and shut down those archers. Waystalker did okay as well, 1.4k damage value, certainly not too shabby. Used up all his ammunition, focusing down characters, as well as helping finish off that Eagle Claw bolt throw with the arrows of Kurnos swinging in from afar. The Spellsinger did decent as well as the Glade Lady, 1.6k damage value, helping to protect that back line. Risky move, pushing forward to shut down the bolt thrower when all the Deepwood Scouts were kind of left to their own devices, but using the Glade Lady nicely to help protect them where possible, doing a really solid job. And I hope we see more of the Great Stag Mount, because the model is amazing, and it was a really cool on tabletop as well. As for the High Elf forces, the Mighty Teclis did try to put this one in his backpack and carry the rest of the squad to victory, and he nearly pulled it off. 111 kills, 14k damage dealt, 2.6k damage value, some beautiful fiery convocations. The first one in particular taking out 2 units. Second one did good burst damage on some drives, but maybe he could have saved it, tried to bunch them up around him and then drop it once more, but still 2 very good costs. Can't be mad about that. Apart from that, the other heroes really did suffer. The nobles certainly overextended, and the cavalry, I said this in the battle, definitely went too early in my opinion. You have the range, you have the bolt thrower, swing back, you can still pressure the back line, but you wait for your enemy to be drawn into the bolt thrower, then you whip around the flanks and start attacking and getting dug in. But still, it was a cool idea. Lovely little charge of Rohan, and he did good micro after the initial kind of bad engagement, where the Reaver Archers got some really nice work done. 800 damage value here, 850, 1,300, really good stuff, and eventually managed to shut down the enemy back line. All the other Reavers though faring a little bit poorly. Likewise the Archers, they just didn't synergize super well with the rest of the build. Apart from that, Great Eagle is a fun pick, and the bolt throw, despite the fact it was enabled to fire for a huge duration of the battle, only 500 damage value because there wasn't too many good targets for it, and it did take those spread shots off the Bladesingers, which I'm sure Captain Morgan will be very happy about. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.